Just some guy who looked at me, shook his head, and walked away. But it was everything left unspoken that made this ordeal so terrifying. I still get knots in my stomach when I think of him. No story I could tell. This happened to me when I was a 28-year-old woman sitting in my parked car at a Walmart in my hometown of Bellingham, Washington. I had chosen a spot in the far corner of the lot, where few people parked. What made the encounter so unsettling wasn't so much what happened, but how it happened. I was looking down at something in my lap, absorbed in my own business. The periphery of my awareness blurred and unfocused. Then my attention snapped back as a rapidly approaching shape, a tall man, rushed toward my car. I assumed he was a Walmart employee coming to tell me I'd been sitting too long and needed to leave. At the time, that would have annoyed me. Soon, I would have welcomed it. I broke my gaze and looked up. The man, despite his unsettling behavior, appeared normal, even well off. He was fairly attractive, dressed in spotless, fashionable brand name clothes. Probably a few years younger than me at the time. Nothing about his appearance would have suggested he was the type to do something so random and creepy in a public place. But I suppose that is one reason for the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. He stood absurdly close to my car, staring directly down at me with an intensity I have yet to witness again. At first I expected him to say something. Maybe he needed directions, or thought I was someone else. I looked up at him, waiting. He didn't even blink. He just locked his eyes onto mine as a quiet unease began to rise in me. "What's up?" I asked, in a tone that made it clear I wanted an answer. His expression didn't change. He only drilled his eyes deeper. "What?" I snapped, louder this time, layering annoyance and discomfort as thickly as I could, while trying to mask the fear coiling in my chest. Something inside whispered a warning. Don't let him know he's scaring you. But I doubt I managed it for long. The longer I furrowed my brow at him in irritated confusion, the more that unease swelled from the pit of my stomach into my throat. He just stood there, not blinking, not once. Nearly a minute had passed. The only change in his expression was the intensifying weight of his stare, cold, determined, bottomless. I hate to admit it, but that was the moment I began losing my grip on composure. "What the bleep do you want? Get the bleep out of here," I demanded, still trying to sound angry rather than terrified. What he did next sounds unremarkable in the telling, but believe me, if you had seen the callous, hyper-focused glaze in his eyes, you would understand the chill that sprinted down my spine when he narrowed his gaze to a razor-sharp point, boring deeper into the caverns of my being. A slight smirk touched his lips. Then, slowly, deliberately, he shook his head left, right, left, a controlled, silent no. My throat dropped into my stomach. Debilitating shivers raced up my spine and pulled at the nape of my neck. I glanced instinctively at the lock on my car door, expecting it to be secure. It wasn't. Before I could even think, pure adrenaline launched my hand to the button, slamming the lock shut just as his eyes followed mine to the same terrible realization. I am beyond grateful my body acted on autopilot, because my mind was racing too fast to form a single coherent thought. What the bleep was even happening? It didn't make sense. You expect a man to say something when he approaches a woman in her car like that. Even if his intentions are dark, even awful, you still assume he'll utter some comment, some signal of what he has in mind. This man offered nothing, just stared with a look of pure determination, devoid of any awkwardness, uncertainty, or insecurity. Of course, it would be creepy to have some grimy, deranged lunatic staring you down from 6 inches away, but somehow, it was almost more unsettling that he was anything but. He didn't look like the kind of man who would have any trouble with women. He wasn't homeless, didn't appear to be on drugs or intoxicated. He looked like someone who would be popular with just about anyone he met. I don't know if he was one of those hardcore alpha incels who happened to be very good looking, yet still harbored a deep disdain for women. Or maybe he was simply someone who appeared well put together on the outside, while inside he wrestled with bleak, twisted fantasies he could no longer contain. I kept yelling at him to bleep off, but he was entirely unfazed until his eyes shifted from me to my boyfriend in the passenger seat. The look on his face made it clear this was the first time he noticed someone else was there. I still don't know if he was so hyper-focused on me that my boyfriend simply didn't register, or if he was only now seeing him. But first time, as it happened, my boyfriend had just bought a large hunting knife inside the store. He took that moment to pull it from its packaging, never breaking eye contact with the creep. Only then did the man's gaze shift from the gleaming blade to my boyfriend's face, then back to me with eyes narrowed a fraction tighter. He turned and walked away. I thought that was the end of it. It was not. Not 2 minutes later, if even that, a vehicle pulled into the lot and parked about 5 spaces away from us. Every space between us sat empty. The man had retrieved his car just to park beside us. He sat there, staring directly out his window into mine. I tried to imagine what in the bleep could possibly be going through his head, and the failure of my imagination only made it worse. I had enough. I turned the engine, backed out, and drove off as fast as I could, disappearing from his sight. Part of me expected to see his headlights in my rearview mirror. As far as I could tell, he didn't follow, though my long-distance vision is terrible. I think my boyfriend would have spotted him if he had. That was it. I know how it sounds, no big deal. Just some guy who looked at me, shook his head, and walked away. But it was everything left left unspoken that made this ordeal so terrifying. I still get knots in my stomach when I think of him. No story I could tell, no words I could string together could ever do justice to the way he looked at me that day, or to the energy that hung thick and palpable between us, an unlocked car door and just a thin pane of glass separating me from something I still cannot name. So, creepy Walmart parking lot guy, let's not meet.